Hello, everyone, and welcome to this week's live stream. Our focus this week is on how to experience inner peace. If this is your first time visiting the channel here, I invite you to subscribe and click the bell to be notified. And if you're on Facebook, I invite you to like the page there. And if this video resonates with you, I invite you to give it a thumbs up. Let's get started, shall we? I'm going to share my screen, and I learned a couple of things last week that I want to apply immediately. The first of which is I'm going to try to stop describing the things that I'm drawing. Even though I recognize not everyone can see what I'm drawing, I'm remembering back to when I was first getting started, and also before I started live streaming all of 3 weeks ago. And I got started years ago. You get what I'm trying to say. When I first started live streaming, I was informed by a member of the community, I can't see, I'm blind, and so I can't see what you're drawing. And so then I tried to describe what I was drawing. And it really took me kind of out of flow with what was coming in. And so this week, I'm going to try to just draw and share with words. And for those of you who can't see what I'm drawing, I just invite you to be with the depth of the transmission that's unfolding. There's much more than something being communicated on the screen with a drawing or with my smiling face or with my, even with my words. There's something at a much deeper level that's going on here. And this is what I'd like to explore with you today as we talk about how to experience inner peace. Okay. So the key here, of course, are these last three words: experiencing and the inner part, right? It's about having an experience within our body, and then, of course, peace. And the experience of peace is different for each of us, isn't it? If I describe my experience of inner peace, it might be very different than your experience of inner peace. And so what I want to do is just explore a couple of ideas here. The first of which is, what is an idea, right? An idea is, let's say, an idea of inner peace, but it takes place or it resonates at different levels for us, doesn't it? There could be resonance at the level, these eyes don't look very friendly. Oh, well. We could have resonance at the level of an idea and thinking. And we could also have resonance at the level of the heart. And in an experience of the heart, we're having an experience of feeling. And then there's a deeper level of resonance that's available at the level of being presence. And this is where we really begin having substantial experiences of the experience of inner peace. If I talk about the ideas of peace, it might resonate at the level of your mind. You might have thoughts and think, oh yeah, that makes sense. I can compare that to my own experience. Or if we talk about and have feelings of inner peace at the level of our heart, we might experience those in a way that brings about a calm on a temporary basis in our feeling center, in our heart, and in our minds. But if we sink down to the level of being presence, down here, we actually end up with a level of resonance at every level of the body. And it can be a sustaining experience of inner peace, which can be a substantial change for us. And I just want to illustrate this in one other way for you. So if we look at the thoughts that are happening as sort of the top of the pyramid, that is to say, resonance and thoughts is up here. And we look at the heart as the next level down in the pyramid, and these are feelings. And we look at the being present at the level of the hips. You can see that each layer of the pyramid builds on top of itself. The first level, the second level being at the level of the heart, and the third level being at the level of the mind. Whereas when most people are thinking about having an experience of inner peace, we're thinking about it in this inverted order. We're approaching it from a mental construct first, and then we're trying to get to a level of feeling. And then we try to get to a level of being presence. And this is right from a thinking perspective. But if we approach it from building the base of the pyramid first, then the being presence experience of inner peace precedes and underlies everything else. Okay. So if we again look at these different levels, I want to engage at all of these levels with you, right? Thinking, thoughts. That's easy, right? We could be talking as we are. I can be sharing ideas with you. Maybe these ideas resonate with you, maybe they don't. And then we can be working at the level of feeling. And the question becomes, how do we have an experience at this level? And I want to suggest to you that the way to have an experience here is with, it doesn't have to be guided, but by meditating. I'm going to share with you an experience of a guided meditation today. So that's why I wrote down guided meditation. But meditation in general leads us from a thinking dominated perspective down to a feeling dominated perspective. But then the question is, how do we move into being presence? And really the question is, if we're trying to do something that speeds up, I'm just trying to draw a clock here, that speeds up the clock, that is to move, to accelerate us from thinking into feeling and then into being, there's another resource that's available for moving us down into being presence. And that's what I refer to as a transmission. And I want to explain to you a little bit about each of the things that we're going to do today, not just the words that I'm sharing with you, but also the resources that I want to offer to you. And the first of these resources is a guided meditation called Divine Connecting Breath. And I want to explain it to you so that it can resonate with you at the level of thinking, but I'd also like to explore it with you at the level of feeling as we go through it. But I want to describe to you what's actually happening before we do it. And then I'm going to do this as well. I want to explore with words and some drawing what's happening in a transmission. And then we'll actually go into a transmission. Okay. We'll do that here pretty quick. So let's flip back over to this. Okay. So in a guided meditation, I'm laughing because I'm still trying to get comfortable with being on camera without anyone else running the camera or the video feed. And it just takes me a little bit to get settled in here. So I'm going to do a guided meditation that I call Divine Connecting Breath. And it's something that I received intuitively. And if we look at Divine Connecting Breath and try to kind of explore what happens, there's a default state that we operate in as human beings, which I think of as an artifact of the illusion of separation. The illusion of separation is this idea that we're somehow not connected to each other, not connected to ourselves, and not connected to the divine, assuming the divine is illustrated by what is above us. And in Divine Connecting Breath, we go through a process of moving from the default perspective that we are disconnected to the actual experience on a feeling level, that is at the level of our heart, on a feeling level of being connected, not just to ourselves and not just to each other, but also to the divine by whatever name. And so when that happens, that sense of disconnection disappears and an experience of connection happen spontaneously. And I'm going to do that with you through a guided process, meaning I'm going to be talking to you as I guide you through this. So it's going to be with words, and I'm not going to be drawing anything. I'm just going to be sharing with words. It's a little bit more interesting to try to discuss or do a drawing that illustrates a transmission. The joke that I have with my clients and students and friends is, how can I illustrate or explain to you what happens when we're in transmission together? So one way to explain this is to say that when we're in transmission together, and transmission is just a way of describing how the divine expresses through me. Okay, it's a unique thing that expresses through me, just like the divine expressing through you is unique for you. But there's something that happens when you go into transmission where you have an experience of being presence. And this is where there is a level of experience that is, if we go back to this pyramid, that is originating below thoughts and below feelings. And this is as good as it gets in terms of me trying to describe to you what actually happens. And then I'd much rather actually explore with you experientially what happens in transmission so that you can have a direct experience. Because however you would describe it for yourself, or in whatever ways that it is inaccessible linguistically or accessible for you linguistically, the most important thing, of course, is your experience of it. Okay, there's one other thing that I want to try to illustrate for you, and that's just the difference between these different levels of engaging in the world. The thinking perspective, the feeling perspective, and the being perspective. So if over here we have choppy seas and cloudy skies, the thoughts we're having are sad. And if over here we're having sunny skies and smooth seas, the thoughts we're having are happy. And if we move into a meditation dynamic, we sink down a little bit. And if the sun is still shining outside, we may have temporary experiences or even sustaining experiences of happiness if the seas are calm. But over here, we might temporarily have a neutral feeling, or we might even get to a happy feeling. But once the meditation ends, that happy feeling goes away, usually, and is replaced by an unhappy feeling. Because at the level of thinking and feeling, we're being influenced substantially by what's going on outside of us, thus the arrows coming down. But if we move down another level into another level of our experience, and I guess I have to share my screen for you to see what I'm drawing here, at a deeper level, we have an experience of being presence. And being presence, whoops, those eyes don't look very good. At the level of being presence, it's no longer dependent on thoughts or feelings. It's something that underlies that. And that's a level where all of a sudden the light, instead of coming down from above, begins to be experienced as originating from within you. And this is especially important for the person over here who, in the outward expression of their life, is in choppy seas and cloudy skies, but underneath everything at a being level can have an experience of deep resonance, whatever that means. This could be going on at a level of the physical, at a level of the mental, the emotional, the energetic, and so on. And this is where we begin having sustaining experiences of inner peace. And the reason for this is that the source of the peace is coming not from out here in the world, not from our thoughts or from our feelings, but from the divine within, which is always there inside of us, no matter what else is going on in our lives. And in fact, if we sink down to an even deeper level, what we begin having an experience of is not just sustaining peace, in this case, sustaining inner peace, but a peace that permeates through every part of our lives. The resonance of this being experience isn't just in the immediate of our lives or of our inner experience, it resonates out into every other part of our life. And this is what I'm interested in exploring with you experientially. So I'm going to set aside the tablet here, and I'm just going to invite everyone who is tuning in. And by the way, I do have the ability to see comments, or at least I think I do. And I just want to welcome everyone who's participating live on both Facebook and on YouTube. I'm just going to, before we start with the guided meditation and the transmission here, I'm going to let those of you know who are on YouTube. This is my Facebook professional page, ken.stone.spiritual.teacher. And there on YouTube, it's Ken W. Stone, the Soul Archaeologist on YouTube. So again, I want to welcome everyone who's on live. I do have the ability, I think, to see comments. I haven't seen any comments coming in yet, but if you want to comment, we'll have an opportunity to engage in some question and answer on the other side of the transmission. So before we drop in here, I just want to kind of set the stage for this experience. The experience unfolds both at a thinking level and a feeling level, as we've been exploring. But once we drop into transmission, and you'll know that happens when I say the words, let's begin, we're going to drop down even deeper into this being presence. And we don't know what's going to happen there because it's really a raw experience of the divine within. And in this case, perhaps a raw experience of inner peace. And so as we're going into this experience, I really want to encourage you to not do anything else. I can't imagine there's anyone who's actually listening to this while you're driving a car, but if you are, please pull off to the side of the road. In fact, if you're doing anything else, riding a bike or anything like that, please take a few. Oh, good. Thank you. Sharon is checking in saying testing comments, and I'm happy you're here today as well. Thanks for saying hi on YouTube, Sharon. Okay, I will pick up with comments here once we conclude. So in any case, what I'm trying to say is if you're doing something else, please stop doing that now. And then if you can, put yourself into a comfortable position. My experience is the divine is within us no matter what is going on. So no matter what's going on the outside or even on the interior of our lives. So the key from my perspective is to get comfortable. And if you can, close your eyes, which is sort of a funny thing to say in the middle of a video live stream. But if you can, close your eyes. I'm going to actually. And I just invite you to breathe in and out through your nostrils if that's comfortable for you, and put your palms towards the sky. And you may have had many experiences, perhaps with me and perhaps with many other spiritual teachers and guided meditation and so on. And the key for this experience is just to set aside that inner judge, to set aside that dynamic of trying to categorize. Oh, this is what this is. Here's what's happening. Just open up to a raw experience that's taking place within you. The reason why I like to begin with divine connecting breath anytime I go into transmission is that this transmission is not coming from me. It's coming from the divine within you. The divine within you is enlivened, maybe by my words or my presence. My witnessing presence is another way of saying it. But the key is I don't want you to associate this with me. It's not that I'm sending energy to you. In fact, there's nothing to send. If you remember back at the picture, we've got at the level of the choppy seas, I might send you ideas. I might even send you feeling at the level of the heart right? We might even get into a process of entrainment in the heart. And there, I might invite you into my field or other language like that. But at the level of being presence, at the level of dropping down into the hips, now thinking and feeling have subordinated, is become secondary or tertiary to being. In that dynamic, something else is unfolding. It's actually divine presence within you, the true source of inner peace. That is what's being enlivened. And by going through a guided meditation first, you have an experiential opportunity to encounter that for yourself, that feeling of the divine within, before I connect in energetically. And once I do, I think what you'll discover, as a great many other people have, is that what is enlivened within you is not something different, but just an amplification of the experience you are already having. Okay, enough with description and explanation. Let's have an experience of inner peace. First, let's engage in some thinking and feeling through divine connecting breath. And then let's drop into being as we go into transmission together. With your eyes closed, breathing in and out through the nostrils, palms to the sky. Let's take a deep breath in and hold. And as you begin releasing this breath, just let go of everything that has come before in this day, all the way out to the count of 8. And once you've exhaled all the way, just allow your breath to return to a natural cadence and be with whatever is coming up. And let's take another deep breath in and hold. And as you begin releasing this breath now, letting go of everything that has come before since you were born. And as you do, I just invite you to let go and release the dominant way of thinking and feeling that has been expressing recently in your world, in your interior world, is what I mean to say, all the way out to the count of 8. And if your eyes are still open, we're breathing at about this tempo right now. But how you breathe, the tempo you breathe at, whatever is going on for you is perfect. Whatever's coming up for you is perfect. Beautiful. And another deep breath in and hold. And as you begin releasing this breath out to the count of 8, letting go of everything that has come before since the inception of your soul. And now releasing the thinking, feeling, and being that has dominated your interior experience recently. Whatever timeline you want to put on it is fine. All the way out to the count of 8. And just allowing your imagination to open up and that screen in your mind's eye. Perhaps your intuition is expressing as well. And notice the cue of breath in front of your face. One unit of breath, followed by another, and so on. And as you breathe in, each unit of breath comes up through your nostrils to the crown and down into the lungs. And it does so without any condition or criteria. There's no qualification being imposed on the breath. The breath isn't saying, I'm not going to come into you if you got upset this morning. It doesn't change whether it's flowing into you depending on your political beliefs or your sexual orientation or gender identity or your ethnicity of origin or any of it. None of it really is affected. The breath is moving in and out and nourishing and serving you. And you might even notice a color, still with your eyes closed, a color beginning to infuse itself into the cue. It could be a static color, a fixed color, or it might be changing. And if you're assigning a color, maybe you pick something not normally present in your body, except possibly in your eyes. And with this next breath that you breathe in, whenever that is, I just invite you to be with, from the perspective of the color, the breath as it moves through the nostrils towards the crown and then down into the lungs. And if you sustain that experience in the lungs, just present as the breath is flowing in and out, we can start to move time forward very gently and slowly. And as we do, just notice that color beginning to infuse itself through the lining of the lungs and eventually into the bloodstream. And if you move time forward even more, you might, and sort of stand back in your mind's eye, you might actually see that color beginning to move through your body. If on whatever cadence feels best to you, you move that color, or excuse me, you move time forward about an hour, you'll notice that color, the essence of that color in every single cell of your body. And there's a very simple conclusion we can draw. And just notice when I make this statement where you feel or see or experience the yes. The breath is becoming you, and you are becoming the breath. Yep. Intellectually, oxygen, lungs, sure. Maybe at a feeling level, you might actually be feeling some sensation in your body, a physical resonance, a form of yes. Perhaps you see in your mind's eye, could be your imagination or your intuitive faculty. Well, sure, I see that color becoming me. The breath is becoming you, and you are becoming the breath. And if you expand out to take in the entirety of the breath of the planet, you'll notice that the breath of the planet is serving your cue. The cue of breath that you're breathing comes from the breath of the planet. And the same thing is true of all your neighbors and your neighbors' neighbors, and eventually everyone on the continent that you're on right now, the hemisphere, and ultimately the entire planet. And with that expanding awareness, you can become aware with the breath, by the breath, you are directly connected to each and every person on the planet. And it's not just the people either, is it? The breath isn't limiting itself just to people. The breath is serving plants and animals and insects and water and fish and trees and dirt and rocks. With each breath, you are connected to everyone and everything above, upon, and within the planet. Indeed, at some point, we can even begin to perceive that the breath of the planet becomes the breath of the cosmos. For at the very edge of our atmosphere, that breath encounters space, and that space eventually connects to every other part of space. And so we can say, with each breath, you are connected to everyone and everything in the cosmos, including that energy that underwrites everything else, the divine. A light, perhaps at a great distance initially, drawing closer with each breath until perhaps it's close enough that you can perceive within it these twin frequencies, the frequency of perfect health, the frequency of the divine itself, intertwined such that there is no separating one from the other. And eventually, that light drawing close enough that instantaneously connects in with you, perhaps at your nostrils initially, and then instantly through every level of your being, none known and unknown. The invitation extended to each of the smallest parts of you by that light. Come return to your natural state of resonance and alignment. And as that invitation is extended, the artifacts of dissonance begin falling away and gathering at what we might think of as a universal drain, a container holding all this dissonance. And in your mind's eye, in your imagination, or intuitively, you might notice there's a little plug in that drain. And for whatever remains in separation, I invite you to remove that universal plug. I'll do the same. The divine is becoming you, and you are becoming the divine. With each breath, you are connected to everyone and everything in the cosmos. The divine, the light, the twin frequencies connecting into each of the smallest aspects of you on every level, known and unknown. The divine is becoming you, and you are becoming the divine. Let's begin. When we sink in and the divine animates, everything is animated. Every part of your being, all the things that you really are, and also all the things that you are not. One of the things that you're not is separate from yourself, from others, and from God. Sometimes that feeling is animated as we go through our lives, or when we begin having a deeper thinking or feeling or being presence experience. And with that comes also an experience that is real of our innate connection to self, to one another, and the divine. And that too is animated. And we could go through and divide between experiences that are real and not. And the beauty is that in being presence, everything that is not who you really are is consumed, transmuted by the embodied divine, by that animating presence. And your only job is just to allow yourself to feel or express whatever is coming up. And if thoughts begin infiltrating and steering the experience in a way that doesn't resonate, or perhaps just the idea of thinking isn't most resonant for you, you can remind yourself with each breath, you are connected to everyone and everything, the divine, the light, the twin frequencies. The artifacts falling away, the divine is becoming you, and you are becoming the divine. You'll notice if your feeling experience begins expressing in dissonance, that same remembrance, that same reminder brings a deeper experience. It allows you to drift from thinking into feeling and then drop in even deeper. Ultimately, inner peace, sustaining experiences of inner peace are not the byproduct of thoughts that we hold in our awareness. If it were, it would be dependent on holding thoughts, exciting initially, exhausting later. It's not even a function of feeling, because feelings can move with the currents of life, choppy seas or calm seas. It feels different, doesn't it? But at the level of being presence, underneath, deeper into the ocean of your inner presence, here is the divine within, the light, the experience of that light shining, originating within your being. And here, that expression simply erupts because it is who you really are. Not because of thoughts or feelings, but because this is who you really are. It is not dependent on whether the seas of your life are choppy or calm or something in between. It is not dependent on you holding a thought in your awareness or a feeling in your heart. For both can be and are influenced at the surface of life and even at that slightly deeper level by what's going on out there or what's going on in here at the level of thinking and feeling. And when we drop deeper, we get to being presence, the raw experience of the divine. Now, thoughts and feelings arise or are the natural byproduct of being. They take on a completely different quality. The experience changes radically. And not because of something that you're doing or a thought you're having, because this is who you really are. Who you really are is the embodied expression and being presence of peace, of profound, extraordinary inner peace. Peace that sustains no matter what is happening on any level of your experience. In your thoughts, in your feelings, in your mind, in your heart, in your body. Underneath everything else is this peace. And this peace is not a byproduct of something or caused by something that I'm saying, even though that may not make any sense at the level of the mind. I am not sending you anything. There is nothing to send to you. It is already within you. This is who you really are. And if you're having an experience of dissonance coming up in your body or your mind, just allow yourself to feel it. There's a profound alchemy that takes place when you allow yourself to feel whatever comes up and at the same time are supported or having an experience of being. The alchemy of being presence and thoughts or feelings that are not who you really are, but are animated by the divine presence within you, by whatever name. Anytime noise comes up on any level, you can remind yourself with each breath, you are connected to everyone and everything. The light, the twin frequencies. I can feel those waves of resonance moving through the collective, everyone who is having this experience right now. And by the way, for me, now just means anyone who ever watches or listens to this, because time and space are an illusion. And all I can experience is what is actually real. At least in this perspective, that's all I can experience. And if thoughts begin to engage, well, is this inner peace or what else do I have to do? That's wonderful. It's the thinking mind coming up. It has an opportunity to transmute and become feeling and transmute further to drop in and now into being presence in the hips. And one of the easiest ways to do that is to remember that awareness that comes from divine connecting breath. With each breath, you are connected to everyone and everything. There's actually a shorthand that we can use if you'd like. Just imagine for a moment that you're sitting near a stream or a river close to where you are right now, wherever you are on the planet. And let's imagine for a moment that you set up next to this stream or this river and you hold an intention with your mind. It's exciting holding intentions, and you want to explore the power of your intention. So you have an intention. The river is going to flow downhill, and you open your eyes. Lo and behold, the river is flowing. Just like with each breath, you are connected to everyone and everything, the divine, the light, the twin frequencies. The breath is becoming you, and you are becoming the breath. The divine is becoming you, and you are becoming the divine. The river is flowing, and you could hold that intention with each breath. I'm connected, and so on. But notice as you are sitting next to this river, now you drop the intention entirely. You sit there and you have emptied your mind of all intention, and you open your eyes. Still, the river is flowing. So too, with each breath, you are connected, and so on. The river is flowing. Now, if you turn your back on the river and begin to walk away, still, you turn around, look back, the river is flowing. Forget about your innate connection with the breath and with everyone and everything and the divine. Still, that connection, that expression is flowing. The river is flowing. Walk away from the river, forget of its existence. Still, the river flows. So too, with each breath, you are connected to everyone and everything. The divine is becoming you, and you are becoming the divine. I can feel viscerally the resonance moving through our circle right now because my hands are buzzing like crazy. Now, you might be sitting there thinking, well, what does he mean? And what am I having that experience? Don't worry about it. Whatever is coming up for you is perfect. Whatever your experience is absolutely perfect. At some point, there will be a physical resonance in your body. Likely there will be. There are some people who are oriented in such a way that the things that some people feel physically, they become aware of in other ways. It's important to acknowledge these different perceptual views of a singular experience. But whether you're aware of it in a way that you feel in your body or you're aware of it as if it were your body, that is to say, intuitively in some way, or in another way that's difficult to describe, that physical resonance is the expression, the experience, the outward experience of the inner innate connection that you have with the divine, of the river flowing. And notice that when it is erupting at the level of your body without a thought or a feeling preceding it, how beautifully disruptive and freeing that can be. Disruptive because aren't thoughts important for what's unfolding? Isn't that how the world works? And freeing because here's this experience of resonance erupting in your body. This is the premise of the resonance experiment, which I started back in 2017, did twice in 2017. Feel like we're doing it every week with these live streams, another installment in the resonance experiment. The experiment is, can you have, and what does it feel like? What's your experience of the divine within? Not an idea or even an emotional feeling, a visceral experience of the divine within your body. What does that feel like? And the longer you sit with that experience, the more it integrates, the more it embodies. And how does that begin to influence the feeling and the thinking that goes on in your life, but also the interior of what's happening, let's say, within your body and your mind. And eventually, perhaps after it's embodied and integrated at a much deeper level, how does that influence or affect the outward expression in your life? And notice even when I stop talking, the space opens up, the resonance expands. The words are not the source. The words are perhaps a poor reflection or indication of an inner, deeper transformation that is ongoing within us all. And if we're thinking about or reflecting or being in the experience of inner peace, one question that might arise or one point of reflection that might arise might be, how does this experience sustain? And the answer is so simple. It sustains through the encounter and integration, embodiment, practice of being presence no matter what else is going on. Again, so much resonance in the body. If you're not feeling it yet, it's okay. No problem. If something's getting stirred up that's creating a distraction, just remember, the river is flowing. You can remind yourself, short form, the river is flowing. The river is flowing. Maybe even be the river. Or perhaps long form, with each breath, you are connected to everyone and everything. Can you feel instantly? The divine, the light, connecting into each of the smallest aspects of you, known and unknown. The river is flowing. Inner peace is just one description of being presence, of the encounter of the divine within. There are many other byproducts of this experience. And not at all to diminish the experience that we're having together. As deep as the ocean is, and many, many times deeper, is this experience, is this invitation, is the opportunity within you to sink in, to drop in deep. My mouth is starting to buzz. One of the ways the divine communicates through me, in me, as me, is that my body tingles and buzzes. My hands buzz when there's an expression or experience of physical resonance in the individual or group with whom I'm working. My feet buzz usually first as an indication of that resonance, of that alignment with the divine itself, the energetic, the spiritual. Usually it's the energetic first and then the physical or the outward expression of that resonance. As it embodies and deepens, my hands start buzzing. And there are all sorts of other ways that I can feel and experience that expansion, that integration within my being. One of the ways is that when my mouth starts buzzing, literally just a feeling, a buzzing or a tingling around my mouth, sometimes in my chin, it means maybe there are things coming up for us to explore, someone to give voice, ask a question, and we have an opportunity. I have actually no concept of time whatsoever. Don't know how long we've been in the experience here, but I'm guessing there's still a little bit of time available. Maybe there's a lot. I don't know what questions are coming up in the group. Here's what I will say. We're going to hold this space open. We're going to stay here in this sort of deeper being presence for a while, actually, until the live stream concludes. And at the conclusion of the live stream, I'll go through a process of closing the space, this transmission with you. But if you're in a place now where you're thinking, I'd actually like to disengage with this experience. I don't want to be part of a conversation with other people on YouTube or on Facebook right now. I just want to be in this experience. Then my invitation to you would be to, when you're ready to close, to return that universal plug and know that the transmission will come to a close. And if you're interested in exploring at a deeper level even than this, we gather every other week. Actually, we're gathering on Thursday of this week and then again in a couple of weeks, and sort of playing around with the idea of maybe a Thursday, Saturday. And we do a deep dive workshop. It's a virtual workshop, a virtual gathering. And you can learn more about that by going to deepdiveworkshop.com. I'll put it up on the screen for anyone who wants to open their eyes and look at it. I'm just sharing this for anyone who does not want to be part of the the interaction. Okay. I'm still getting some of that mouth buzz here, and maybe the mouth buzz is just about moving in deeper, because right now I don't see any comments coming up. I'm going to go just check in and make sure I'm getting the accurate information. Sometimes it's a little interesting to see what comes in through the dashboard where I'm at. Okay. Okay, good. I've got everything. Got everything going on here. So I'm just going to come back to my interior experience, and we'll continue dropping in deeper. I'll would love to answer any questions or explore with words, and I'm also happy to just sit in resonance with you to sink in. It's such a beautiful thing to have available, this deep inner peace no matter what's going on. And I mean, I can think of so many times in my own life when, before I became aware of this, before I became aware of my, I don't want to call them my spiritual gifts. It's sort of a clumsy way to refer to the ways that the divine expresses through me. But before I became aware of that, there were so many times in my life when I would have loved to have been able to dial up this experience, the drop of a hat. And then just thinking about what's unfolding in the world right now in my own life, so grateful for the opportunity to sink in. And then the opportunity to sit with you today to have this experience. Yeah. So beautiful. Remember, if you are in that deeper space and then all of a sudden a thought comes up or the feeling shifts, and all of a sudden some dissonance, some worry, something other than deep, deep peace, just remind yourself, with each breath, the river is flowing. You are connected, everyone and everything in the cosmos, the divine underwriting everything else, a light at a great distance, drawing closer with each breath. We reset and drop back deep enough down in the metaphorical ocean of the interior experience of who you really are, so that the source of the light is not up there, but in here within you. The minute that experience shifts from out there to in here, we're in being presence. And again, big wave of resonance through the body. I actually can put these comments up. Sharon has a couple of questions. I'm going to put them up here and read them with you. So, am I understanding that the only way to be uninfluenced by what's going on in the outer world, for example, the density of the energy in the world right now, is to sink into my being level? Yes. I um I got a sneeze coming up here, which I'll mute for if it happens. Oh yeah. Excuse me. I don't want to say this is the only way, Sharon. What I can say is that the experience of being and being presence is a natural insulation from what is happening in the outer experience because it is not part of this experience. So there may be other ways to get here, but I'm unaware of what they are if they exist. And is it possible to sink in my conscious state or only when in a transmission? You can do this in your conscious state. The transmission is a way of accelerating, of deepening the experience of who you really are, of being presence. It's something you can do consciously at any time. The more you practice, the more you experience being in this experience, being supported in this, the more it anchors in as something that can be referenced. And eventually, it can even be referenced consciously just by saying, repeating the words, the river is flowing. That will open the experiential extension. The thing I want to say here, and I'm actually going to try to draw a picture of this if I can, see if I can get to the level of picture engagement here. So in the transmission, okay, let me just write transmission. There is support for being who you really are. And not just being, experiencing. So the these eyes are, the transmission, or let's say God's expression through me, supports you in moving here, from here, thinking down into being presence. But here's the key. This experience, and we can actually go back to, maybe I'll draw a simplified version of it. This experience at this level, again, my drawings leave a little bit to be desired. This is now at being presence. This is always going on. This is always going on, no matter what else is happening. The question is, are we focused at the level of thought, at the level of feeling, or at the level of being? This is our focus. So the experience down here is always here. Always. And in fact, the experience lower, where this is happening, this is always here. Oops. Always. So if we come back to Sharon's question, is it possible to sink in my conscious state? Yes. Yes. I can stay aware at the level of thinking, at the level of feeling, and also at the level of being. And the transmission only supports that. If we come back here, the transmission is support. It does not create. It does not create. It is support. So it's always, always there. Great questions, Sharon. Thank you. And notice when we're talking, when I'm drawing, maybe you begin engaging at a thinking level, but watch, or don't, let me say that differently. Just be with this. So if you open your eyes to look at the drawing, now just close your eyes. And I recognize we're in transmission together, but the transmission isn't actually creating this experience. It's just supporting you in experiencing it within yourself. It supports you in opening up that experience. It supports you in anchoring in that experience. The experience itself is always going on within you. Okay, so if you close your eyes, breathe in and out through your nostrils again, palms to the sky, take a deep breath in, hold, and then release this breath out to the count of 8. And as you're releasing, just remind yourself the river is flowing. The river is flowing. The river is flowing. Look at that. It's like the center of gravity moves down from your head to your heart, boom, down to your hips. And with that, I experience, and actually I could feel the intuitive faculty and the intuitive awareness in the collective, in our circle, in this group, is resonating at a stronger level. And there's a reason for that, actually. There's a huge connection between the 6th and the 2nd chakras. So when we are embodied, when we come down into our being presence, we enliven a connection, a resource that is always available to us, but we actually can begin experiencing it. And at the level of that physical feedback of the outer expression, at the level of my body, of the inner experience of my innate connection with the divine. In this case, I'm facilitating and supporting this transmission, or this having a witnessing experience with you. This enlivenment is not being directed by me. This is about the divine within you and that intuitive resource, that intuitive faculty. I'm pointing to my forehead. If you don't know, the 6th chakra up here is related to the intuitive resource. But as you come into being presence, it actually enlivens even more. See if there are any other questions that come in. We still have a few minutes. We can just sink in to the experience at a deeper level. We're having an experience of inner peace. If you're just tuning in, thank you so much for joining. In the system that I use, I can't actually see who's commenting or who's here until you comment. So the way for me to know that you're participating in the experience is to comment. And actually, whether you're watching the replay or you're here live, I'll know, and then I'll respond to you. If it's during the live stream, I can comment to you in our interactive portion here before we wrap up. And acknowledge you on video, and if it's later, I'll comment on the comments section, whether it's on Facebook or on YouTube. Either way, I look forward to interacting with you. But the technology I'm utilizing doesn't allow me to see who's participating until you comment. So I'm so glad you're here, sinking into this experience of inner peace. It's always available. So I want to show you this picture again. It's not just that it's always available, it's that it's always available as a resource. So the question is, how can we develop this? And the development of this resource just involves this process of dropping down, of moving, of shifting from a focus on thought to a focus on feeling, and then to a focus on being. And at least in the ways that the divine expresses through me, we do this. This movement is through guided meditation, and divine connecting breath. And this movement down here happens in transmission. And then this movement here, moving even deeper into this space that resonates outward. And I'm going to try to do another drawing, another even more simplified drawing. Choppy seas, calm seas. The sun's out here. We have this first level. This is thinking. This is feeling. This is being. And then this is in deep. This movement is just about uncovering and experiencing who we really are. And the support for this is available. In lots of different ways. Clint has a question. Clint, it's wonderful to hear from you. Are you ever in transmission while also performing a physical task? I'm assuming you're asking this of me. Yes. So here's another perspective on this, right? So same picture, but now an experience of my inner world. Just like you, I can engage in thinking. Oops. Thinking, I can engage in feeling. I can engage in being. When we get down here, it's even deeper. It's like we're sinking into an experience of existence, the thing that underlies everything else and that supports everything else. So it keeps flipping. And this would be an experience of integration. And integration can be all sorts of different things. But at this experience of integration, actually, when I'm in transmission, I'm down here. Okay, come on. Transmission. But this is not dependent on any particular thing. If I were really good at stick figures, I would say I could be sitting like I am now. Or I could be walking or running or dancing. I might be driving. I might be doing all sorts of different things. So the answer to your question, Clint, is yes. You could be in transmission all the time. Your being presence. For me, the opportunity that we have as messengers. So I think we're all spiritual messengers. And a spiritual messenger is just somebody who is having a conscious experience of the inner experience of the divine, but now in relationship with interacting with others. Many others or just other. Oops. So as spiritual messengers, we have this opportunity to sink into a deeper experience within ourselves, and also then as it relates to how we interact consciously with others. And it doesn't necessarily mean that we're having an experience of being in transmission, right? We don't have to be doing a healing session or something like that. Oh, Julie's saying we can't see your screen, Ken. Hopefully I flipped it back. Gail here in Greece. I could only connect late. Gail, it's so good to hear from you. So back to your question, Clint, the thing that we're doing in this experience, and I'm going to try to increase the size of the screen. Oops, and now the comment's getting in the way of it. So as spiritual messengers, we have this opportunity effectively to shift within our own environment. This is our, let's call this our private interior journey through this. But then there's also a public exterior journey. I'm putting quotes around this, and it's not really even a journey, right? From the perspective of separation, we have this experience of going down. So in the private interior journey, we have an experience of going into being presence, and then into an experience of existence. And then this actually is available within our public journey as well as we interact with others, back to this point. So we're not just going down internally, we're also going down, which starts to look like a process of horizontal embodiment as we interact with others. But here's the fascinating thing. I'm just going to draw on a new scale now. Here's the ocean up here, and then here's that first layer, and here's the second layer. It's more like this. And up here, I'm having an experience of me, maybe it's we. But eventually, this experience starts being I am. And what's happening is it's like a cone that extends out. So initially, there's me and other people. But eventually, everyone is within this experience. And eventually, the entire world is within this cone, within this experience, which previously would have been described as, say, a horizontal embodiment involving other people, something that we're doing outside of us. In reality, this is all happening within. It's all happening within the individual. So there's a deep, deep level. Clint says, in transmission all the time at multiple levels is my goal. Exactly. And so if we look at this from a different perspective here, Clint, let's talk about it in terms of the stages of consciousness, right? We've explored this. God consciousness is where we're all born. There's victim consciousness. Here's controlling consciousness. Here's conduit consciousness. And then here's union consciousness. So the movement from God consciousness into victim consciousness can happen in many different ways. There's not a singular experience. And then as we wind our way through victim consciousness, there's only one way to move from victim into control. And this is about responsibility. Here. And then lots of experiences in controlling consciousness. This is now the empowered separate self. This is the disempowered separate self. And then there's only one transfer point here, and this is about surrender, about letting go of control. And then there are many experiences in conduit consciousness where we're integrating these earlier stages, but they're simply building blocks, as you can see, and then many pathways into union consciousness. And Clint, what you're talking about is having an experience of the whole house. That is to say, in union consciousness, being in transmission in ways that resonate at every level of consciousness simultaneously. So somebody who's teaching in union consciousness is resonating at every single level of consciousness. I get that this drawing is starting not to make a lot of sense, but each of these levels resonates. Whereas if you're teaching or interacting or working with somebody in just one of these levels, it will resonate at that level. If we're just talking in victim consciousness, if we're just talking in controlling consciousness, if we're just talking in conduit. But once we move into union, it's everything. Also known as, if we go to another picture, all these levels. This is thinking, feeling, being, existence, and then deeper. If we're in union consciousness, it's resonating at all these levels. This is at the level of the head, heart, hips, and then further into the divine mystery. There's resonance at all of these levels. Oh, thank goodness I remembered to share my screen. Okay, let's see if there are any other questions coming up. I want to respond, and then before we wrap up, we'll, oops, I think my computer didn't get in the way of that experience. Okay, any other questions coming up? Let's take a deep breath. I'll come back to questions again, but I just want to sink in again. Here we have this opportunity, see, where we have an opportunity to practice engaging up here at the level of the head and at the level of the heart while being in the hips. But notice how there can be this movement when I ask about questions or start talking about things where the collective group moves up and we can move back down. But the question is, how can we anchor into this experience? It's all about continually dropping in deep. That's what this is about, over and over and over again, dropping in deep, having this deeper experience of who we are, no matter what is going on. So let's do that once again, shall we? Deep breath in and hold. And as you release this breath, letting go of the thinking, the feeling, and even the being that has been dominant in the last few moments, and open fully to the divine mystery that expresses and finds form at the level of existence. Exactly. Beautiful. Okay. I want to share one more thing with you here. I talked about it a little bit before we started the break, but this opportunity to drop, I don't know why Siri keeps coming up. Siri's feeling left out, apparently. This is what we're doing later this week. We're going to drop in to this level, and then we're going to drop even deeper. And I just want to invite you to participate in this experience. If what we're doing is resonating with you and you'd like to go deeper with this, you can learn more and participate in the deep dive workshop by going to deepdiveworkshop.com. And I'll put it up on the screen as well to make it easy to see, because sometimes my handwriting leaves a little bit to be desired. So we're going to do that later this week. This is actually the second deep dive workshop. If you want to experience the first deep dive workshop, you can get a monthly membership that will give you access to the first one, and it'll actually give you access to every single one. We're going to do these every 2 weeks. We'll continue to do the live stream every Monday. We'll sync in, explore different themes, answer questions, and so on. And then every other week, either on Thursday, or I'm also looking at Saturday as well, maybe alternating between the two. We'll drop in here. We'll come down to this level. And eventually, the idea is to integrate and sink in so that this light begins permeating out into all aspects of your life. And the thing this does is it really accelerates what is going on, what is unfolding in your life in a really profound way. It accelerates the integration process. It accelerates an experience of all the byproducts of coming in at that deeper level. There's a lot of really extraordinary stuff that can happen there. And my brain does not want to engage very much with thinking or talking about this right now. I just want to make the invitation for you to participate if it resonates with you. And then I want to stay with what is unfolding here on a level of experience. Okay. I don't see any other comments. So let's close our eyes again and close our experience for today. Deep breath in and hold. And as you begin releasing this breath, just opening more fully to the experience of the being presence that is who you really are on every level, not just your thinking, not just your feeling, but also your being. And maybe most especially your being, all the way out to the count of 8. And as you sink in once again, to reinforce and anchor in this essential truth, this deep inner peace is always available at being presence and below, is who you really are. And so when you're ready, I invite you to return the universal plug. I'll do the same as I begin bringing this transmission to a close, and you will notice the resonance continues, because what is happening here is we have been enlivening what is already within you, the presence of the divine within. What an absolute honor and privilege it is to share this time with you. For those of you who are watching this on replay, I invite you to engage through the comments below. I can't wait to interact with you there. If you haven't already, I invite you to subscribe to my YouTube channel. I'm going to put up a link so you know how to get to the YouTube channel if you're not already on the... No, I'm not going to get a link up. Oh, maybe I am. Here we go. Here's a link. Invite you to subscribe if you haven't already. Click the bell to be notified. If this video resonates with you, please do give it a like. Thank you so much for sharing this time with me on this beautiful, beautiful Monday. I look forward to being with you again very, very soon. Until then, much love and peace. Thank you. If I can figure out how to... There we go. See you next week.